5 o'clock, we'll go ahead and call our meeting to order. This is our tax hearing for the proposed 4% tax revenue increase. I would just like us board members to all be on the same page and know that this is a hearing only, and we will not be having any dialogue between any of you speakers and the board at this time. Our comments will be made at the actual vote. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Davis and let him go over what we are proposing as a board and give you some insight as to why this decision has been made to bring it to hearing. So, Mr. Davis.
Thank you. Y'all have to forgive me. My heart rate's up a little bit with all that other going on, so bear with me a little bit. I want to start by saying we do appreciate our community, and that's genuine. I know you guys do a lot already for the school system, and we recognize that. I also want to say that I can respect a differing opinion and folks being opposed to things. I'm a taxpayer and I'm a citizen as well, so I understand that as well. But what I'd like to do is just take a few minutes now and go over the reasons that we're even asking, because the last thing we want to do is ask for any money or ask for anything. We'd rather not do that. But there's some things that I think as I lay out and as I speak to you, I think you'll at least understand where we're coming from, even if at the end of the day you still say, you know, I don't feel that way. So to me, there's like 3 questions basically. One, are we responsible with the money we have? Because if the answer is no, we've got no business asking you anything. 2, if indeed we are, why are we asking you this year? You know, last year we asked for the compensating rate. We didn't ask for any more than this. So what's changed? You know, what's up ahead now that wasn't necessarily up ahead before? And then 3, okay, how much money are you actually talking about? So I think those are the 3 things that I'm going to try to go through as best I can and explain it as best I can. I don't have a PowerPoint. I just wanted to talk to you folks. So the first question, are we being responsible with the money we have? And I think that's a definite yes. I'm comfortable with that. It started before I got here. It's not like I came here and just made everything right, but the biggest cost to the district by far is staffing. And we're down over 150 positions from 4 years ago. So we are definitely way down on that. Actually cut a couple, 3 more jobs coming into this year because we did have a little bit of a drop in enrollment, actually a decent drop in enrollment. So we did cut some staff positions. So yes, we've done that. We've also, and we're paying for it a little bit, but we've put off a lot of maintenance things that need to be done. We're way behind in buses that we need and maintenance vehicles and some HVAC stuff that I'll talk to you about in just a little bit. So those are a couple of highlights where I think definitely we have been good stewards of your money that you've already given us. It is true, last year we did give back the money that the teachers and all the folks had lost 4 years ago. It took 4 years to give that back, did it in a hopefully responsible manner. And to me, that's not just right for any organization's employees, if possible to do, but it's right by our kids, because I'm glad to say that this is the first year in 4 years that we haven't had to emergency certify a teacher. Now, I won't get into the weeds there, but basically what that means is that because we are more competitive with surrounding districts now, we had a better applicant pool at all positions, so we didn't have to go out and almost recruit people that didn't have their degree and hope they got it. So we're in better position because of that, because we did give the money back. So the folks are now, it's not like they've gotten a lot of raises and they're way ahead of where they were. They're where they were 4 years ago. And so I think that was done responsibly, but I want to assure you of that. Every dime we spend is pretty well thought out, because we recognize, again, we don't want to do this if we don't have to. So the second thing, why are we asking now? Why didn't we ask last year? Because this discussion came up last year, and we thought last year, you know what? We don't have to. We can do without it. Let's see where we're at. And then some things changed throughout the year, and I want to highlight about 5 things or 4 things. The first one, and I'm not getting into the politics at all, no matter where you stand, yay or nay. I'm not interested in that. I want to talk about how things affected the school district. And the biggest one was the pension bill. Now, there's some changes that were made there that I won't get into all of them, but the district is required, as any employer is, to contribute to the retirement of their employees. In our classified folks, we were required to contribute 19% of their salary. because of the pension bill, that's changing to 28%. And it's going to go up, it's going to scaffold up over time. Just next year, though, it's going to cost our district $400,000 more dollars. The year after next, this is approximate, this is pretty close. The year after next, another almost $400,000. And in a very few years, it's going to be $1 million a year that's coming out of our coffers that we had no idea was coming down the pipe. So that's one change with the pension bill. The budget. There were some changes, not quite as drastic, but two things I do want to illustrate. One, I don't know if any of you have kids in college or have had kids in college, but you know textbooks are really expensive. We got about $100,000 a year to help fund for textbooks. That's gone. Kids are still going to need textbooks. So it's $100,000 a year that's going to have to come out of our general fund that didn't happen last year. Professional development. Our teachers are required to get 24 hours of professional development every year. We got about $70,000 from the state to help with that in the past. That's another thing that is now gone. So there's at least $170,000 a year that we didn't see coming out of the budget with the budget changes. I'll get to maintenance here for just a second because we talked about that. We've got a project we're getting ready to start at East and West with the HVAC units. They're almost 30 years old, so they're way overdue going down, and they are going down piece by piece. Should have been done 3 years ago. Simply didn't have the money. So we have a pretty good cash balance now, and one reason's been to save up for this. Doing both of them would be about $10 million. We don't have that to do right now. So what we're trying to do is change everything out at East and the guts of it at West, basically the boiler and the chiller. I don't want to get into the specifics, but it's about a $7 million project that we're bidding out now. We hope to do next spring. So that's really going to eat into that cash balance. We have pretty significant issues at South Middle and somewhat at Longest that we're just going to have to put on the back burner a little bit longer. But the maintenance issues, we're behind on, like I said, buses and other things. I don't want to bore you with that, but we put some things off, like we occasionally do at home when we get in a bind, and we're kind of paying the price for it a little bit now. Safety. Safety is a big one, and it's not that we weren't focusing on safety before, but you guys know what happened last year. You know what happened in Marshall County. You read the news all the time. It's happening everywhere. So we're trying to take it to a whole new level. What can we do to not only make our kids safe, but make them feel safe and do it in a responsible way, because we don't have unlimited funds. So some things that we have done, and I'll tell you what we would like to do. We've added a school resource officer, which I'd love to have one in each school. That's the ultimate goal, but there's no way we have the money to do that now. But we split one with Greenville, so now we have one at both high school campuses and both middle school campuses. Again, we would love to add more. We've upgraded camera systems. We've added radios. We've upgraded some doors, like the gym doors at East and West. They weren't terrible. They were on schedule to be fixed, but they needed to be upgraded, so we went ahead and did that. That was a cost of about $40,000 just for those doors. We've added panic buttons to each school. Never thought I'd have to do that. That's something that wasn't on our mind a year ago, but it seems prudent now. We've added those to both high school campuses, and we're in the process of adding them to all the other schools. And we're looking at redoing the entrances to 5 of our campuses, because what they tell us now, what they actually almost insist upon, is that you have to go through 2 levels before you get into a building. And we've got 5 campuses. Unfortunately, that's not the case. And we had that in mind to work on down the road. We're going to have to accelerate that now. We have had a cost estimate on that. It's right at $400,000. Now, those are things we didn't really anticipate having to happen this quickly. There's a few other things with safety, but that's the main thing. And one other thing I want to mention, because I think there's been some misinformation or some misunderstanding out there, we are having a drop in enrollment. A drop in enrollment hurts the school system. It's never a plus. And I want to try to explain that a little bit. Let's say we lost 125 kids, which is about what I think it was last year close. You can cut some positions, and we do. But unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, those 125 kids aren't on the same bus or in the same classroom. So you still have to run those routes. You still have to do a lot of things. A lot of things don't change. Maintenance costs don't change. Utility costs don't change. What you can change is staffing. So let's say we can cut 2 or 3 positions, which we did. That may save us $100,000 to $150,000. But the other side of that is one of the main reasons we can run our schools is the state gives us about $4,000 per student. That's $500,000 that we're out in lost revenue, if you want to look at it that way, versus maybe the $150,000 we save. So please understand that a loss in enrollment always hurts a school district. That's just the way it is. So those are the main things, many of which are new and have changed, that concern us going forward, not just now, over the next few years. So the next question is, what's it cost you? All right, what are we talking? Basically, we have two options. We can take the compensating rate, which we did last year, or we can take the 4% revenue increase, which guarantees the district to get 4% more than we did last year. So I asked Eric, I said, give me the exact numbers. I want to be able to tell the folks the exact numbers and the difference of those two. So if we take the 4% versus the compensating rate, you own $100,000 worth of property. It's going to cost you $21. If you own $50,000 worth of property, the difference will be about $10. And there was rumors out there, I think, I've heard some folks say, hey, I heard it was going to be hundreds of dollars, $200,000-$300,000. If you own $500,000 worth of property, it'll be about $100. If you own $1 million worth, it'll be about $200. So those are the numbers. Now, I grant you and I understand that you could say, well, the fiscal court's doing this and the library's doing this. I understand that. I do. I get that. Unfortunately, we can't base our decision and our discussions on what they do, even though I get it. Like I say, I'm a taxpayer like you guys are as well. We have to look at the school district and what's best for our kids. And one other thing that should be noted, because nobody wants a higher tax rate. It's harder to get business with a higher tax rate. I understand that. We're 160th out of 173 districts in the state of Kentucky in tax rate. We've been blessed with TVA money. I grant you that, and I understand that. When we're down several $1 million there, but we're 160th out of 173 districts, and I promise you now, as folks, you're looking at folks to move in and businesses to move in, a strong school system and a safe school system are at the top of those lists too. Some of you may not even have kids in the system. And you may say, you know, what's it have to do with me? I mean, I respect that opinion. I may not agree with it. I think a school system is all of us. I mean, we need your help now is what we're saying. Again, you disagree with us and you think I don't want to do that, then I respect you still. I respect differing opinions. But this is the reason that we're asking. I try to just kind of outline these things. Now, what would this generate? All of this together would generate about $300,000 with a 100% collection rate, which typically doesn't happen. So you're talking about $300,000, which of all the things I mentioned, that doesn't even cover the classified employee retirement contribution for 1 year. So it's not like this fixes everything, but this is a bump that we need. I hate to come to you with it. The goal is to never come to you with it. The goal is to not come back to you with it again next year. And it'd be a whole lot easier not to face you now and have to deal with this. But my responsibility is our kids and taking care of those kids as best we can. So I can assure you, any money that is received, if this does indeed pass, it'll be spent to the best of our ability on our kids in the right way. So again, thank you for your attention. I appreciate it. It's time to listen to you folks now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. So at this time, we're going to open up our floor to our public comments regarding this proposed tax increase. And as before, like I said, we will not be engaging in any dialogue between you all as you speak, but we will at the vote. So I'm going to start with the first one on the list, Mr. Jared Douglas.
First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Jared Douglas. I'm a parent. I have a child in the school system. Some of you here know me. Many of you know me here. I've been here before. I was instrumental, not tooting my own horn, but I was instrumental in recalling the utility tax that was attempted on our community a number of years ago. I'm here because I opposed the tax. I'm a property owner. I'm a small business owner. I own rental property. My partner and I, of 23 years, my wife, we own rental property. The last tax increases we absorbed, we did not raise rent, but I assure you, we will raise rent this time. We cannot absorb an additional tax on our properties. So your folks who are retired, I hear fixed income all the time. Well, income is about trading time for money. So you agree to go to work and punch a time clock, and you put in a certain amount of time and you get a certain amount of money. I'm sorry, it's not just the elderly that is on a quote-unquote fixed income. They spend 40 hours, they get X number of dollars. That's a fixed income. So our folks here in the community who are not homeowners are going to be passed this tax along to their monthly rent. Guarantee it. Talk to rental owners. We are going to do that if you guys choose to do that. Who doesn't want safe schools? We want safe schools. Love to talk to you about that sometime one-on-one. I've talked to Stephanie. I've told some other folks about some plans that I have that I think would be great for school safety. But here we're talking about the dollar. I believe from what I've read, the cost of collection, the building fund, instructional fees, transportation, and maintenance of the physical plan. Well, retirement's not part of that. I understand it's part of your budget, but this increase is going to pay for these things. I appreciate the summary of expenses, but we're talking about these 5 things: transportation, physical plant, instructions, building fund, and cost of collection. I oppose it. I would like to also comment on transparency. I don't think you've been very transparent with the community. Great speech, whether it was prepared or off the top of your head because you're that quick on the numbers, I don't know. We've known each other a long time. I know you're doing a good job. You're trying. But the community does not know that. There might be people who would be okay with the increase, but what we're seeing is, hey, we need more money. Hey, we need more money. Oh, and Greenville needs more money, and the county government needs more money, and all of those stack up on us. And there's many of us who are tired of that. We want to go back. When I have more expenses, I have to go to my contingency fund. Other rental owners have to go to their contingency fund, figure out how to make it. Let's figure out how to make it without burdening our folks here in the community. Our population's going down, our people are getting older. I use Zillow to advertise my rentals. I encourage you guys to go take a look at a property for sale on Zillow. You can look at the school system. So if I'm a company looking to locate some of my executives for an operation in Muhlenberg County, the tax rate's great. But then they look right in their school system, it tells you how your schools are rating. That's not good for us either, what I'm seeing there. And I only found that because I posted rentals on Zillow. So that's not good for us. Not good PR for us because we're not performing with all of these dollars that we're asking for. So I'm new to this. I've only been here a few times, but I do oppose the tax. I oppose any additional tax. I appreciate the opportunity, and I'll yield the remainder of my time to the next on the list.
Thank you. Thank you. Next we have, is it Ellen Smith? Elon, I'm sorry.
In college, I did an economic study of this county. I missed you going broke by a year. And your median age is 60 now. You're not having young people come in. The school system's the biggest employer in this county. You are one of the 6 most depopulating counties in the state of Kentucky, which means your enrollment will keep going down. And so taxing the people that are here, most of them are retired. They've come back to where they were home. They've worked in Chicago, Illinois, Gary, Indiana. They've come back. They're retired. I live on a road outside Highway 70. We all have a question. 3 buses go out that road. One bus leaves the kid off at one house, the bus behind it leaves the kid off at a different house, and the 3rd bus leaves the kid at a different house. All in a 2-mile stretch. I would think they could organize that a little better. I worked in the school system. Very few buses ever come full to the school. You can see one day you stand out here and look at longest in MC. They're all lined up. Very few students ride the bus. You may have 7 kids get off the bus. Now, other days they may have to. extended school service, I see you put that back in this year. I did it for years. But this is something where depopulating, people on my road, the median age is 60, and everybody is retired. They can't afford, they're retired at a set amount, they can't afford anymore. You said about the pension, I didn't get any increase for cost of living. My money stays the same. So, I mean, for me, this would be not as much as a burden to the lady that lives down who's living on Social Security and gets $375 a month. That would be a burden to her. So you need to consider that. You are one of the 60 populating counties in the state of Kentucky. More people die and leave this county than stay.
Thank you. Mary Devine.
I'm also here tonight to oppose the tax. I think there are many things that could be done that haven't been done. The population in this building alone could be decreased by several. Many jobs could be put together. There are a lot of things that go on like that that could happen here. When we look at the salaries of the folks in here, the stipends that are given out, that some are more than what a principal of a middle school or an elementary school get for a stipend for one day a month. I mean, those things could be combined. Many jobs here could be combined. We are, I think, well overpopulated here. Say that won't make that much money. My concern is that you really haven't investigated what compensating rate would be for the money that you get opposed to the 4% tax. Compensating rate, you're guaranteed the money that you got last year. Okay, if you go with 4%, you realize that property is devalued here. When we have industry that leaves here, I'm talking small places, even companies, that's taken away from you. So the amount of tax money that you get could be a lot smaller if you go with this. If you stay with the compensating rate, you're going to be guaranteed at least what you got last year, because at the rate we're going here, the unpaid taxes, you're not going to get those either. That's going to be subtracted from you when you go with this 4%. So do a little more looking at it before you take into that. I'm on a couple of other boards in this county, and we've discussed this many times. We have stayed with the compensating rate because we get the money there. We've looked at what the difference was going to be if we went with the 4%. I don't think you're really going into that deeply enough to look, because the money could make a big difference for you. So, you know, we're really looking at that. Yes, we want things for the school, but look at where we can cut a few things that are not necessary. Things could be combined, and we could save on that kind of thing. But I have talked to several members in my community, which I live in on the east side of Central City, and they are all opposed with this. So please take another look at it before you say this is what we're going to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. John Thompson.
My name is John Thompson. This is the first time I've ever spoken at a hearing for taxation. I'm too a landlord, as I thought about this, I thought about the people that I service. My tenants are generally either poor or on fixed incomes. And I have seen their real income go down due to inflation, and they're small and they're subtle, but they're continuous, and it's eating away at their real income, right? I also have been working in the community, working on campaigns, going door to door. I see a lot of people, and I've talked to a lot of people, and we have a tremendous amount of people that live below the poverty line. I mean, it's a large number. And quite frankly, I just don't think that they have the money to do it. And it's not just you, and I know Robbie spoke to that and says, well, we can't worry about what everybody else is doing, but we as citizens do, okay? We look at, this is what's coming out, and this, and this, and this, and I have to deal with that, and they have to deal with it. But I worked at PACS for about 4 years, worked with seniors, and I saw seniors' real income going down year after year after year. The lady spoke about that already. Their income is fixed. It's not going to go up anymore, so any cost that goes up just takes away from their bottom line. And so their incomes are actually declining every year, okay? Due to whatever, whether it's tax, insurance hikes, the can of soup going from 12 ounces to 10, that's the way they do it in marketing. It all adds up. We got social economic groups, we all know that. I'm well off. If you're just going to tax me, I would say that's quite okay. Go right ahead. It's not going to affect my life that much because I have the extra funds and the knowledge and skill set to adjust my budget and just continue to march on. Okay. I've seen a ton of deferred maintenance. I see people's homes going down. They can't maintain them. Basically what this points out to is our county is in decline. Okay, that is, I think, well known by everyone. Our county is in decline. And so I'm totally against any new tax increase here with the county, with Extension Office, with anyone else for that matter. And I think also when we're at this social economic level, we lose contact and perspective for the people that are below us, okay? The people I work with and see are not here. I would suggest that they don't even know that this is going on. They probably can't even afford a newspaper. I'd like for us in the future to do something to try to notify as many people, and not just follow the law of, 2 weeks ahead in the newspaper. Nobody, I get the paper. Sometimes I catch it, sometimes I don't. But I would suggest they probably don't even have the money to buy a paper, or they choose to use it elsewhere. I want to go over some of the things that Robbie, Mr. Davis spoke to, and just offer my opinion. Well, first off, the maintenance issue, the $7 million, Is there any way that as a board, that as a school, that we could do one this year and then do the boiler and the other part in the other school another year? Are the systems failed? Sometimes, and I know that I do, I have to push things down the road. I'd like to have a new car. It's not as reliable as I'd like for it to be, but it runs and it works. And so that's how I see things as just little things, common sense ways to solve my problems. When you put it in perspective that it's just $10 for a house of $50,000, that sounds really good. That's not bad at all. But once again, I'm speaking for these people that as it gets added year after year, and we take 10 here, and this group takes 10, and this one takes 5, and that one takes 10, you're eating away at their real income. I too do not want, and many times I have held off on raising my rents because I work with the working poor. I work with people that, I've got 2 young people with a baby, and they're working 2 30-hour jobs, and they're struggling. I'm concerned about them. I really am. And it's, the fact is that as we continue as a county to spiral down economically, okay, these people are not going to be able to adjust. We talk about the rate that we get for the children. If we look at, we lost, 100 and some odd kids, that's about $500,000, but the state government's giving you more, so that's around maybe 150,000 or so. We got, 30 kids to a classroom? You're going to eliminate 6, 7 teachers, 8 teachers at a salary. I know my wife makes right at 50, and I know when we eliminate jobs, it's usually the ones that at the lower rate. In other words, they don't make as much as my wife does. But it almost is a wash there. I could be wrong. I did not have the time I'd like to put forth on this with all the numbers, but I got an idea for you. I think that we can expect enrollment to continue to decline. I think common sense and the numbers would suggest that, and that's what we do when we budget. We look at the future and we try to decide how do I budget my resources, what do I buy, what do I not buy, what do I push down the road. And I believe that we could consolidate the high school, mothball a school, that would work on the fixed cost that Mr. Davis spoke about. And I think with the decrease of 125 kids, I think it's very doable. It would also save money on this bus thing that we're all aware of. It just seems crazy to me. It seemed crazy to me when we implemented it years ago. So I'll say that. And then, talked about the ranking in the tax rate, 160 out of 173, but we didn't mention where do we rank in household income. I'd like to know that. And we're only asking for $300,000, and I believe there's plenty of places within the budget to find $300,000 and do the things that you still want to do, including safety, which that would be first on the list, and other things would get pushed. But here's the thing, it said certainly will help the kids. got this money, not raising taxes will certainly help the poor. And the bottom line is the poor or lower and lower middle class will have no choice but to balance their budget, which is decreasing in revenue every year. These people below, these people are lower now or below what they were 4 years ago. And I appreciate my wife's salary getting back up there, but honestly, when I look at the statistics out there and the numbers and our citizens, my wife does very well compared to the other people in this community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Harvey Joe Van Hook.
First off, let me say I'm opposed to any tax rate hike. Most everything that can be said has already been said. Now, like John, I've been out knocking on some doors, and I see the folks that we're talking about that with the low, with the fixed incomes and the low incomes. And priority should be taking care of our kids, the safety of our kids, and the great education for our kids. I have no problem with that. Most of us in this room can absorb any tax rate that hike we may get. But the folks out there that can't is where the problem is. It's going to trickle down to these kids that we're wanting to provide a good, safe education for. And to me, if you wanted to sell any kind of increase, it need to be more transparent. I personally would need to see a by-line item budget and where the money is going, and make sure that I've trimmed all my fat first before I go asking for money. And that's about all I got to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be signing autographs later.
Wendell Fleener.
My name is Wendell Fleener. For those of you all that don't know me, I have a second grader at Bremen Elementary, and I have a daughter that's in her second year at Western Kentucky. And my wife is also a teacher in the school system here. I'm against any tax increase, like the gentleman before me just alluded to. I can handle it fine. It's not going to bother me, but like I said, my wife is a teacher, and they just now, like Mr. Davis alluded to, they just now got back to where they were. So they raised taxes before, and anybody that was married to a teacher got hit twice. Property taxes went up and the teacher's salary went down. So we got more than the 4% increase there. And as Mr. Davis alluded to, it's going to be $10 for 50,000, $20 for 100,000, I think it was. I take a little issue with those numbers, and I'll tell you why. The 4% that you did last time was supposed to be around the same thing. Well, before the 4% took effect, Muhlenberg County PBA went out and reassessed 5,500 homes in the county. My house was one of them. They raised the value of my home by $50,000. And my tax bill went up almost $400. So that could very easily happen to other people. And that $20 that you're speaking of, that doesn't sound like a lot. But you take that $20 and have it happen to 5,500 people in the county, I would say was in the same boat I was. That changes the whole dynamic of the $20. And it went up about $400. Do I think they'll reassess it again this year? I wouldn't think so, but I don't know that. But they will reassess some other people's houses in the county. So that's a little misnomer to me, the $20. I see where you're getting the math at, and I don't take disagreement with that, but there's outside factors that are figuring in. Another thing I see here, I see a lot of projects getting done in the county, and a lot of those projects are using people from out of our county. My question would be, if we could use people from our county that live here, that are going to spend money here, that money's going to come back to us. The people that, I work, if I had to depend on Muhlenberg County for my income, I'd be starving. Because I've worked in Muhlenberg County maybe one time in the last 10 years, 15 years probably. the people that live here, that would do the jobs, would bring their tax money here because they live here. It's just like me working in the state of Indiana. I don't spend my money there, I bring it back here. If there was a way that could be done, I think it would help our public and help our community. I love Muhlenberg County. I was raised here, I've been here all my life, and I want my daughters to have a place to come back to and be here. But the way the county is going right now, I don't see that they can do that. I don't see that they're going to be able to come back here and live because everything is just slowly dwindling down. And I'm not here to beat up on anybody. I want a safe school just like the next parent does. Like I said, I've got a second grader. And I like her, I love her schools, and I think overall we have a good school system. But the reason I'm opposed to it is you can't keep taxing and taxing and taxing, because pretty soon the parasite is going to consume the host, and you're not going to have anything left. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen Lavelle?
Let me just say, in the interest of expediency and redundancy, everything that I was going to talk about has been talked about. I'm against the tax, and so if anyone else has something to say, then let me go ahead and do that.
Thank you. Judith Sims?
Well, I'm kind of in the same boat. Most everything I was going to cover has been talked about already. The only thing I would like to comment on is it's not just property tax, it's other taxes too. I mean, we got library tax, we got TVA surcharges that are sometimes a third of your electric bill. You know, there's a lot of other taxes that are going up too, and when you put them all together, sometimes it's close to 10%, you know, that you're paying in taxes, just the county and, so, anyway, I'm opposed to the tax. Next person can go online.
Thank you. And that concludes all of our speakers. And we want to thank you all for coming and spending your time sharing your thoughts with us. We take all of your thoughts and feelings into consideration. And anything that affects taxpayers and most of all the students in our district. So we have to keep the best interest of our kids at heart. And so if there's no one else, we will ask for the meeting to be adjourned, and then we'll have our vote.
Administrator, I don't want to be out of order here, but, you know, I certainly, anytime any of you would like to just sit up and sit and talk with me, I would be glad to. And hear what you have to say more in depth and have that conversation. I would welcome that.
Thank you. All right, I need a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Johar.
Second.
Second by Ms. Wells. All in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. All right. Okay, it's actually 6:02, so I'll go ahead and call our meeting to order for our tax consideration vote. And at this time, I'll just open up the floor to the board members and all, and just kind of let everybody kind of tell what they want or what they're thinking and regarding the tax. And I mean, I'll go first. Nobody wants to go first, and I never usually do either, but I will. You know, I've been pretty torn over this vote as well. I know I've talked to some of you all out there, our family. I've been on the phone pretty much all day, off and on, with Mr. Davis and Eric, requesting more information, things to look at, numbers. I did a comparison for the last 3 years on a lot of different things. You know, I think the bottom line is what a lot of people are looking at, that we have more money now than we've had. You know, I think what is striking to me is the fact that all of these state budget cuts that we have received or will receive this coming year is going to impact us a lot worse than what we had planned. With that being said, you know, no one obviously in this room probably wants to pay more taxes. I mean, it affects every single one of us in here. I'm one of those people. I have rental property. I know we were just discussing vet services such as, you know, the vet. You pay more there. I go to the vet all the time. I'm a dog breeder, so, you know, I have puppies and dogs at the vet all the time. So, you know, gas, food, everything. A gallon of milk anymore and bread is $1 more than it used to be a year ago. And if you have boys, you always go through a lot of bread and a lot of milk. So, you know, I have a friend that's, for example, that has 4 children, you know, all in the school system. Recently divorced from her husband, who's not paying any child support. She's responsible for the home, the bills, everything. You know, this is going to impact her financially a lot, you know. And I've just really been torn on how to go about this vote tonight. I appreciate all your comments. I do. And every one I've heard from, phone call or here tonight, I can understand exactly where everybody's coming from, because I think we all know who fits the description of who we're talking about. Is it going to hurt me to pay? No. Well, it might. I just lost my job, so it might hurt me a little bit. It'll be all right. But I've just been torn about what to do. I know we're going to be out a lot of money for the HVAC. We might can do them in 2 different projects, just like what one of y'all suggested. You know, I know there's other things that's probably out there that maybe we can look at. I know we have a lot of SEEK funding that we're missing out on by kids not being in our school system. And that's $4,000 per child per year. So every time our enrollment goes down or our kids are taken out of school, homeschool, whatever, you know, we have a lot of kids getting homeschooled. I mean, that's a lot of money. So my opinion is I see the need. I understand the need, but I also understand the community's needs. And that being out that extra money, I just don't know that that's feasible for a lot of people. So, I recently lost my dad, and I know they were on a fixed income, and he was in the hospital for 2 years, and I know how it would affect my family. So, sorry. I'm good. I'm done.
Well, I'll say I'm one of those working poor you were talking about. I'm 75 years old. I still hold a job. I draw a minor little pension from the coal mines. 38 years ago, 39 years ago in January, I got hurt in the underground coal mines. They didn't ask me if I wanted to retire. They told me I had to retire. So I live on a little dab of Social Security and a small pension that wouldn't even buy most people cigarettes that smoke. I don't smoke. I've cut most of my bad habits out. But I understand where people's coming from when they say they don't want to pay it, but I know a lot of people, and I deal with a lot of people in the job that I have. I don't know anybody that can't afford $20 in my district. I mean, there's possibly, there may be some, you know, but I own 3 houses, and I pay taxes on all 3 of them. So, you know, I'm gonna have to pay it just like everybody else does. And if I didn't work, I would be struggling, you know. But I'll probably work till I die because I don't want to struggle. And I'm for the tax because I'm for the kids. You know, whatever we need to do to help the kids, you know, and you know, I think we need to do it.
And I agree, nobody wants our taxes to increase. I mean, that's just a given, but we do have to look at, you know, what is best for the kids. And I will say, in working with Mr. Davis and Eric, the last year, they've gone beyond as far as presenting numbers in different fashions, what ifs, scenarios. And So I have been impressed with that. The maintenance issue is huge. When Mr. Fleming presented to us earlier this year, I mean, it's, in my opinion, we've pushed most of it to the point we can't push much further. Eric can elaborate on that, but he was just talking about, you know, $6,000 very often just to keep something going because it is so old. It's, well, I understand it, if we do this, it'll be the 5th since 1956. So that's a long span of years. And another thing I think we also have to consider, we don't have very little bonding capacity. It's just around $1 million or a little more. So if something does happen, and, you know, we're out all these extra expenses to the state, this 400-something thousand this year that's going to increase to $1 million, the textbooks, you know, all those things that they named, you know, we don't have the capacity to bond very much right now. And then safety above all, I think that's got to be top priority. So, but once again, I do respect everybody's opinions and your thoughts, and I do hear where you're coming from.
Well, I own a lot of businesses, as you all know, a lot of real estate, commercial, residential, land, and so forth. I'll be the one getting affected as well. But looking at the rational shootings going around, and I got 3 kids in the schools, and knowing our county and so forth, that what through the budget, in my book, more than the HVAC. Right now, we're looking at $500,000. By the time we get done, that's going to go to $800,000. Nobody has an exact numbers on anything. AC units, I like the idea that we do the same thing, you know, wait on the worst one, the best one to change it at the last. But for last 30 years, that's what they've been doing, repairing and fixing, and it's, at the end of the day, it has cost more now than they should have replaced 3 years ago, like Mr. Davis said. And when you're looking at 7 million number on HVAC, it'll reach $10 million by the time it's said and done. So I'm for the kids and the safety number one, because if God forbid anything happens, you all will be looking at the board members real quick. What was your game plan here? What were you all doing regarding safety? So that's why we took an initiative of working on the safety issue, and I'm for the tax. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Shelley Laval, and I represent District 4. My district is the largest in geography in Muhlenberg County. We have the same population based on the 2010 census. We did go through redistricting in 2015. So I represent a district that has a lot of farmers, maybe small farms, maybe large. So this is really, really impactful to the people that I serve. So I wanted to make sure I went through everything, and I made a list. And if I could just share my points of reason. Number 1, revenue. We've been receiving more from TVA, in lieu of taxes, than most districts, and most districts don't even receive this. But we are blessed, and in 2015, we budgeted $5 million, and we received $6.4 million. Then, in 2016, we budgeted $6.4 million, and we received $6.6. And then 2017, we budgeted for $6.6, and we have received $6.8. Can you verify? Is that?
That's correct. However, our revenue is down $7.8 million.
Okay. This year, the General Assembly increased the SEEK base for the first time in a few years. Typically, in the years past, it was $3,990, the base for attendance, and they increased it to, rounded it up to $4,000. So, based on our enrollment, I feel like we should see an increase in the SEEK portion of our budget. The specifics will be discussed next month when we go and we take the working budget. This is huge because as a board team, we should be told exactly what this line item is going to look like. We haven't heard anything, and I know school safety is a very, very important topic. There again,
Those kids go to school. It is a big topic.
there again, we need to look at each line item that we can so we can save money, because we should make safety the priority. I know it was purposeful to return teacher pay. I understand. But all of a sudden, in the August meeting, we have a big list of what safety needs we have. We should have been talking about this in January when we draft the budget. That was the most impactful month when we knew safety was a big concern on everyone's heart. We took the tentative budget in May, and this was not presented to any board members until August 13th. So I feel like even our staff would have understood not a 2.5% pay increase. Maybe they would have understood just a little bit so we could focus on some of these things. I'm not sure. We didn't assess. Overall, I'm pleased with the short time frame that we've been able to return teacher pay. But we cannot make the taxpayers feel like we're gonna not look at safety now because we don't pass this tax. We can't have that hanging out there that we're not addressing safety because we did not receive an extra $300,000. I think that one of the citizens that addressed the board tonight brought up an excellent point. Because you might ask for the 4%, doesn't mean that people can pay that. But if you take a compensating rate every year, you can take smaller bites more frequently and get what you need. Also, this year, the General Assembly gave a few school districts, one of those being ours, a one-time budget boost. We received $90,000. Is this correct?
That's correct.
To be placed into our general fund to offset any cost associated with the loss in coal severance tax. We all hear about coal severance tax, right? It mostly affects Eastern Kentucky, but there are some Western Kentucky counties that it affects. We were blessed from the General Assembly to receive $90,000 as a one-time budget boost. I guess it'll be placed in the general fund. We have not earmarked how we're going to spend that money as a board, and I think that it can help address textbooks or professional development, any of these other things in which we're trying to explain an increase of 4%, okay? Again, we need to look at the budget line by line. Now, student achievement and attendance. We all know that when students are in school, they are engaged and they are learning, right? Well, it's very important for students to be in school. We are paid based on attendance. So every bit helps. Now, if you go to our school report card for the years 2016-17, I think that is the most current information, then the state attendance rate is 94.4. But let's look at our district. Our district rate is 93.9. That may seem like not much. It's a 0.5% less than the state. However, our high school is at 91.9%, which is 2.5% less than the state average attendance rate. We as a board need to set some goals and say, you know what? We want our district to be 94.4, at least with the state. And for sure, the high school should be. And what does this mean? When we do not have a good attendance, we are losing revenue. We hate to talk about it that way. We know the kids need to be at school learning, but we are losing revenue for the ones we have here. We all know we have a decrease in enrollment because there's no draw to the county. There's no new families with young children. Maybe there are. There's not that many. But it cannot offset what we're losing in seat because people are not coming to our county. So let's look and focus on what we already have and how we can better our revenue based on that actual goal. So if we just say, let's just have a goal for the high school to be 94.4% attendance rate based on 2016's year. I mean, it might be higher now. And if anyone has any questions, you can ask me afterwards, but these are things that we learn in school board training, and so these are very important. I know it may not be something that is, explained in meetings or on our website, but I'll be glad to explain where I'm coming from on that. I do think we should be more transparent our district website could use an overhaul. That's not my battle right now. I just want to make point that it wasn't easy to find myself from my mobile device on my district website. So anyways, we should make it where it's more user-friendly and information is easily accessed from not only a desktop, but also a mobile device. So, community. By not taking the 4% increase, we can have a lower tax rate, so Muhlenberg County will be competitive by attracting jobs or industry to our community. Also, it will help impact any current families as well as maybe potential to bring in newer families to our county. And I'm really surprised that no one from economic development is here tonight. I don't see anybody, but this is huge. This vote, we consume more on that tax statement you will receive in October. The school board receives more than your county, than your library, than your extension, your airport, everybody. So I am so surprised economic development did not come and speak to say, you know what, you're right. We should really consider this because we're working hard to bring more jobs here. We hear our community. We want to respond by saying, yes, we want a good rate to be competitive. If you go down the Western Kentucky Parkway to Paducah or to E-Town, every other county has a sign by the parkway, and guess what they want? Industry. They've got an industrial park just for the next business that wants to come in. And we do too, but we want to set ourselves apart and make sure that they choose Muhlenberg County, correct? So, we know that our school district participates in free and reduced lunch. So, by taking this 4% increase, that means it will put those families at risk, okay? And also, it will put senior citizens at risk because they are on a fixed budget as well. So, the discussion of just the $21 per 100,000, that's fine. We took that in 2015, and in 2015, we were told as a board, it'd been 20 years since we took it. Now, I want to verify this. I went to the KDE website, and they took the 4% in 2008, 2009 when we did the consolidation. So, I know that Susan mentioned something, we need to go back and look, because I keep telling people, we didn't take it for 20 years, but it shows that we took it. And it shows you all your rates. It's real small print, but it's there. So, we took it in 2015, we took it in 2016. Last year was a compensating rate, and now it's proposed to increase by 4%. Having said that, if it passes, we would have taken the 4% 3 times in the past 4 years. I do not know that that is healthy for our community. Also, to speak about the reassessment, that was one of my points also, is that there were people that were reassessed just this year, and they will experience a steeper increase in tax than the $21 that we are quoting. I'm not sure how many homes were reassessed, but it will happen to some families. Now, everybody knows it's our responsibility to be fiscally responsible. So, board members, we should be looking at the current school district contracts and any potential that we have to renegotiate those contracts. In the past, we've been told about cell phones that are provided to employees. I know that typically the next conversation after that is that we receive grant money for some cell phones. I'm not sure that that's the best way to use grants. Any funds from grants on cell phones. I do see in the statement every month where we have Bluegrass Cellular and AT&T. I'm not sure what the overall cost is, but we should be looking at that. If we have employees other than Mr. Davis that have cell phones that we're paying for, we should be looking at that and offer just a small reimbursement, maybe $20, instead of it looking like a fringe benefit for select employees. Now, this has not been discussed, but I do think that we should look at that. Again, back to contracts. Excuse me. We should look at printer cartridges, any sort of fuel, anything that we can buy in bulk, all those things. These things that we can talk about to save money. That only makes sense. As a board, we should be looking at our extra service pay, also known as stipends, at our salary schedule. And we passed our salary schedule in May. We maybe didn't make any changes to that. Can you remember?
I don't think so.
So I know the focus was to return pay, but one thing about our salary schedule is that when we look at these extra service stipends, we didn't make cuts to those in 2015. That's what like coaches or teachers or someone gets extra. I'm not against them receiving something, but there's probably some that could be trimmed down. Just a thought. When you look at our salary schedule, it's not clear when you have all those stipends, how much does it equal overall? If you have a $1,000 stipend for a certain type of coach, well, do we have 5 of those coaches or do we just have 1? So that makes a difference. And we might be able to say, you know, we're gonna have to look at those. Also on the salary schedule, this is no mystery. There is longevity pay. Longevity pay was frozen July 1, 2015. If you are receiving it, you still get it. But it is a select group that receives it. Now, what does longevity pay mean? You have your base pay, you have your extra service or stipends if you get it. Not everybody receives extra service because maybe a kindergarten teacher is not a coach in the district, okay? But there is a small group of people that receive longevity pay, excuse me. And most districts do not provide longevity pay. That is a perk that we have been offering, and I think it needs to be looked at. Now, when it was frozen, everybody might think, well, nobody's getting it. Well, if you were receiving it, you still get it. But you don't get, after 5 years, you don't go to the next bracket and get your, years, 10 to 14. You do not go to the next increment of increase in pay because it's frozen. But there is a small group of people that are still receiving it. Since we know we have a decreased enrollment, we should look at our policies concerning our administrative staff. That's not our teachers, but this is staff at the central office and at the any sort of admin staff at the schools. I'm sure that we could readjust our policies to meet the needs of our students quite well, and then also be able to reduce some positions or combine, consolidate, however, okay? Lastly, next month, we will pass the working budget for 2018-19 school year. We need to have a meeting, even though it might have to be special called, but we need to go through each line as a board and be diligent and say, this is what the community wants to see. We need to be looking at our citizens and saying and asking, this is what I hear. They don't want to have to pay more in property tax. And who am I to say that they can afford it? I don't know. I haven't even heard one person no one's called me to say, please take the tax. No one. So I can't make up scenarios as to why we should. Again, as a board team, we just need to come together and make sure we go through every single item and ask all sorts of questions and look at maybe how we can make the adjustments. When we looked at the tentative budget in May, things have changed. We're gonna have, now that school's in, we're gonna have a decreased enrollment. So maybe that seat falls. I don't know. You budget, but then what you really can go by is the budget from the year before. So, when we had the close of books, June 30th this year, it's not in print yet, I'm guessing, but what was our end of the year balance?
Let's see, I haven't audited that.
I have the tentative budget from May, but again, that's just kind of.
It's 16.231.
Million?
How many pennies?
He said 16.231 million, okay? I don't know how anyone can ask more from our community. And please, this is how I feel, but others feel this way too. And also, as we move forward, I'm not going to be here next year. Please remember, we're going to set a tax rate in August. Remember, in January and February, we're going to draft a budget And also, we'll receive our TVA funds in lieu of taxes. Please ask, look, observe, be, involved to some degree, because it's going to affect us overall. So, I don't know that I really have anything else. I just want to say thank you for coming and thank you for your time. It's very important that we look at this, but this is the most important job we do as a board that affects our community overall. I know it's important for our kids, but when we look at this, this really changes the look of, how we are looked at for potential as far as economic development, new lives, new families.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have anything?
Eric, could you review what you were talking about, how our revenue has gone down and how we've reduced expenses?
Absolutely.
And what other positions can be cut in the district office?
Now, I can only speak for my staff, but when I arrived, I cut out 2 people from the finance staff, and so we're down. Since fiscal year 15, our revenue is down $7.821 million. Since 2015, fiscal year 15, our salaries are down $6.149 million. We were able to cut accounts payable down by a little over $4 million at $4,098,422.64. So our total expenses are down $10.247 million, and our revenue is down $7.8 million. So, to go deeper into that, SEEK revenue, which I don't know if you all recall when I did go over the tentative budget, I do have the forecast that the state does provide for me, and I did go over the SEEK numbers. And since fiscal year 13, we got about $20.1 million. It increased up to $20.867 million in fiscal year 15. However, since then, it's been declining. In fiscal year 16, it decreased $237,000, 17, $526,000, 18, $566,000, and based on the forecast provided to me by the state, fiscal year 19 is going to decrease by about $447,006. So that's about 1.7 million. I don't have the exact figure right in front of me overall, but when you roughly add that up since fiscal year 15. So we've lost that revenue.
That's SEEK.
That is SEEK.
That's our enrollment. That's the lives that used to be here that are not here anymore.
And based on the data, the data that the 92%, I believe, is 2 years old, we're at about 94.46. That's not stellar, but it's still growing, and we're doing a good job in getting the kids to school. Our cost per pupil since fiscal year 14 has gone from $14,000 to $10,000 per pupil. So we're being more fiscally prudent with the funds that we do have. TVA. I took the average I just did the last 4 years and the previous 4 years. The 11 through 14 average is about 10.1 million. The 15 through 18 average is about 6.89 million. That's a difference of about $3.2 million annually that we have found in the budget, going line by line. We've also renegotiated contracts everywhere we can. With like software this year, we renegotiated about $10,000 off of a package, so I got about 30% renegotiated. I renegotiate every single thing I can. I happen to enjoy it, actually. The other thing I would add with the TVA funds, when Mr. Davis and I went down there, he told us a figure of 6.4. They have a whole team of analysts that prepare those numbers for us. I'm going to trust their numbers over what I, provide. Also, TVA dollars are paid based on sales. you know, unfortunately, I'm not a weatherman, so I can't tell you if we're gonna have an extremely cold winter or an extremely hot summer. So when they tell me to budget 6.4 million, I'm gonna be prudent and be conservative, which is a very good thing for the taxpayer. So just in short, though, you know, those sorts of things, we are being very fiscally responsible when we can. The state previously, they told me to budget for 8.2 million the first year I was here. We got 7.6, that's about 93%. So I took the 5.7 million that the Department of Revenue, which I've shared the email with you all, that said to budget the 8.2 and then 5.7 there consecutively. I applied 93% to the 5.7 just to be conservative again. And then I also spoke with the folks at TVA when Randy and I went down, and they said sales were depressed, so I did budget $5 million. I thought that was a reasonable and prudent thing to do, given the situation that we were in. You know, we had no bonding capacity. We had to get special permission from the state in order to go beyond that. We've worked very, very hard and very diligently to restore salaries to where they've been. It's been very difficult. And there are people in this room that know that it wasn't exactly the most pleasant ride. However, I do firmly believe that we are being very responsible. I never ever want to be in the position that we were in the second day I worked here. So anytime any of you ask, can we do this? And I say no, I hope that is adhered to. I can't do how, you know, I can't tell you how to vote. You know, also the last thing I will say is that unfortunately, the only other thing that our district, that the trap that we fell into was that we looked, you know, 1 to 2 years out. I'm looking, you know, 6 to 7 years out every time I make a predictive model. And so this is something to help gain the revenues back that we're losing in SEEK dollars. And so every time, and the property valuation is supposed to, every property is supposed to be reevaluated every 4 years. So, you know, that's the law that was told to me. So I do think we are being very prudent with the dollars. I think we're being responsible with them, and I will be more than glad to speak with anybody about our budget. Thank you.
Do you know what the attendance record was for most recently? Because in my mind, I was thinking it had improved with the students. Is that?
We were up last year, and I think we're off to an okay start this year, but there's no question that, you know, and I will say, we set goals for attendance constantly. We're trying everything we can to improve attendance goals. That's
very obvious in all the emails that we get.
And we still struggle some. You know, that's something that we're absolutely working on all the time, because attendance, it's not like we don't set goals and we don't try. We're doing all but standing on our head and dancing sometimes to try to get them in, and we will continue to do so. So absolutely, I agree with the attendance thing, but it should be said, we do set goals, and we do compete with that, and we do try everything we can.
And I know, I think the last year we've seen much more positivity in all the school. That's evident in our board meetings, from the principals' presentations, and I think teacher attendance is greatly improved, so our substitute cost is drastically gone down.
About $160,000 decrease.
Over 600,000 at one time?
We were at over $1 million.
Million one time?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's just,
I was not on the board at
that was
time.
$1 million in 1 year, just in substitute teachers.
Yeah. Thank God I was not on the board.
And what are we down to now?
It's like 840,000.
140.
And I invite you all to attend our board meetings or watch them online, because it's very positive. The principals bring students in, they talk about what's going on in their classes, and I'm wowed every time.
Sure.
And I think it will show you that those principals are working hard and are earning their money.
Anything else? All right, well, I need a motion to consider These are the compensating of 4%.
I will make a motion that we take the 4% increase.
I have a motion by Mr. Bowers,
Second.
second by Mr. Johar. We'll take a vote. All in favor of approving and considering the tax rate at 4% for the fiscal year 18-19, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
Motion passes 3-2. And make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.